In this video, we talk 5 strategies for preparing and excelling at A-level exams. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rohan. I'm a second year medical student studying at Cambridge University. This is going to be a video on preparing for A-level exams in general, so it should be useful regardless of what subjects you're taking at A-level. There are timestamps in the description box below, so you can skip to the most relevant bits for you. But we're going to cut right to the chase with the first point, and that is to use your specification. So I think the specification is a hugely underrated resource at your disposal. Using the spec prolifically will help you focus your revision on only the most relevant information in the exam, because not everything in a textbook will be examinable. And to dispel a myth of A-levels, there's absolutely no need to read around the subjects, particularly for maths and science, to secure the A-star. So yeah, I advise everyone to download a copy of their specification from your subject exam board. I used to bring the specification along to every lesson and try to relate what was being taught to the specification points specifically. It also really helped me seeing the big picture, what people like Ali Abdaal call scoping the subject. It's easy to get lost in the details during lessons or when reading a textbook, but just by having a list of all the main topics is helpful just to see how all the lessons kind of link to each other. It's also really helpful during revision to mark the specification points you find more challenging, so you can preferentially focus on them first rather than mindlessly just starting at the start of the portions and working your way through. Point number 2 is the most important one in this video, and that is to do the past papers. This probably isn't the first time that you've heard this advice, but if I were asked by someone how did I do well in A-levels, the first thing I'd say is past papers, past papers, past papers. Because they are your most valuable resource, I advise students always to do them in proper exam conditions. This means doing them in one sitting with a start and a finish time. And if I do have to stop for whatever reason, like for dinner, I'll always make sure to take down the pause time. I refrain from listening to music, and there's no room for sneaky peeks at the notes. This might seem a bit overkill, but by doing it this way, you give yourself the most realistic picture of what performing under exam conditions is like. And it also tells you what areas you need to improve on. Ever since I started doing this at GCSEs, my results have been really consistent. Another technique which has served me well is to ruthlessly reflect on my past paper mistakes by collating them in what I like to call a bulletproof document. This is good not only to reveal difficult areas, but also patterns of common mistakes. This is also where I noted down specific wordings from the mark scheme, which are so important at A-level, particularly for the science subjects. For example, if we just flick through the document I made for biology, for each question set or past paper, I made a list of my mistakes, and I bolded the ones which kept cropping up. You can see I also put in red anything I had to go ask the teachers about. A final note on past papers is not to save them all for the last minute. Many people feel that they need to learn the content first before doing the past papers, and this is a trap I've fallen into many times before. However, there's a huge mountain of evidence, particularly in this brilliant book Make It Stick, which I highly recommend for all students, that we learn by testing ourselves. Therefore, we can actually use past papers as a way to streamline learning content, because it also highlights what the most high yield topics are which come up again and again. The problem with doing them all at the end is this is technically a form of mass practice, or basically cramming. And once again, there is loads of evidence to suggest that this is inefficient. Plus, exam technique isn't something that you can really cram for, it's a skill which takes time to sink in. Just like how you wouldn't go for a driving test simply by reading the theory book, then cramming like a week's worth of lessons together, it's ideal that we space out our past papers during revision. Thirdly, and this is building off from the last point, we need to prepare for the tests in class like they were a real exam. Obviously this goes without saying for you guys this year, as internal assessments will determine your final grade. But even in normal times, failing to prepare for regular topic tests thoroughly makes it harder to get most out of the experience. For example, I often found that it was difficult to differentiate if you got something wrong based on the fact that you didn't revise, or that you just fundamentally didn't understand the concept. Another mindset to adopt is that the most important lessons in your course are actually the ones where you go over your class tests. Often these were the lessons where people tend to switch off because there wasn't any new content. But I was the type of person who would scrutinize the mark scheme and pester the teacher on why I was marked down. The purpose of this wasn't to scrounge for marks, but to really nail down my exam technique and to understand 100% why my answer wasn't quite right. And it's good to do this in class because obviously your teachers know the subject a lot better than yourself, so they can be a lot more accurate when marking. This is good because often when we mark past papers, we tend to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt more often than not. Oh no, my answer was like a million times smaller than what it says on the mark scheme. That's better. An added bonus is with revising well for these tests that you get a better understanding of the course as you go along, which means you have less work to do come exam season. And I would say don't underestimate the benefits of doing well and having that boost to your confidence, which can really ease the stress of the real exam. The next tip for doing well at A-level is to prioritize understanding over memorization. This is particularly important for the linear A-levels, which has greater emphasis on application of knowledge to novel circumstances rather than just regurgitating what's in the textbook. This is what makes A-level fundamentally harder from GCSE, where you can sometimes get away with fairly superficial knowledge and still score really well. I've taken a screenshot from my biology specification, which shows that almost 70% of the marks are for application and analysis of information rather than just pure knowledge and understanding. Understanding also helps speed up the memorization process because it's much quicker to remember a story made up of interlinked concepts rather than a load of individual facts in isolation. The litmus test for understanding is if you can teach it to a 5-year-old. This is known as the Feynman technique. So obviously it doesn't have to be an actual 5-year-old, but perhaps you could explain it to your parents or someone else who's taking a different subject to you. Another good test is if you can write a really concise paragraph, for example, explaining something in a past paper question. That also proves that you have good understanding. This is where teachers are really important for clearing misconceptions. The more you engage in class and clear up your doubts, the more efficient this process becomes. And finally, we'll just briefly touch on this, but this is a video series in itself, and that is to use effective study techniques. And the TLDR is we need to stop using inefficient study methods like making notes and rereading the textbook. There's absolutely no need to reinvent the wheel by making pretty notes. This is particularly true for subjects like maths and science, when there's so many wonderful pre-made resources out there, for example on Physics and Maths Tutor, but also the textbook and probably your class notes are really clear as well. The two phrases we have to remember going forwards are active recall, which basically just means testing ourselves, for example with past papers and test yourself questions, and spaced repetition, which means spreading out revision over a longer time frame. I won't say too much on these now, but there's a ton of evidence to suggest that note-taking and rereading are just too passive and don't make things stick in our long-term memory. We need to actively be testing ourselves through regular testing to maximize learning capacity. If you're interested or disagree with me, I highly recommend the book again, Make It Stick. The link is in the description. And I'll also link to 2 of Ali Abdaal's videos, as he's the guy who's really made this kind of mainstream in this productivity sphere on YouTube. So that's all for this video. If you found it useful, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I was thinking about doing some short videos on my A-level subjects and giving some specific tips and resources for each subject. If you think that'd be good, please comment down below so I can get planning on those videos. But anyway, take care and bye for now.